As far as automotive electronic accessories go, dash cams aren't really particularly interesting to me. So normally when a company offers me to review one, which happens quite a lot, I'll usually turn them down. However, when Viofo offered me this A139 Pro kit here, I took a look at the specs and it's actually a fair bit more interesting than most. So the first thing that actually stood out to me about this camera is the image sensor that it uses. So I think 4K is fairly commonplace in cheap dash cams now, but this one is the first one on the market apparently to use the new Sony Starvis 2 4K 1/1.8 inch image sensor. Now that image sensor is also known as the Sony IMX678, and the reason that is a special image sensor is because it's 4K HDR. Now one of the big issues with dashcam footage, if you guys own dashcams or if you've ever seen any footage from them, they really struggle with nighttime driving. So during nighttime your footage is not going to look very clear, it's going to be pretty hard to pick out any details, and anything that gets illuminated above the sort of general lighting area, so say like a number plate if your headlights are on it, it's going to look overexposed and completely washed out. So you're going to lose all of the detail and you're not going to be able to read things like number plates, which is pretty important on a dash cam. So the key thing about this sensor is that during nighttime driving you should be able to still get a clear, well exposed, balanced image that you can actually still pick out details with, which to be honest makes it way more useful than most dash cams. And the other cool thing about this kit they've sent me is it's actually a 3-channel kit. So this isn't just one dash cam, it's actually 3 dash cams. The main dash cam here that you can see is the 4K one on the image. That's going to be the one that goes on our windscreen and looks forward. But it also includes an interior camera and a rear camera. So we can basically monitor the entire vehicle inside and out with one dash cam system. So it's basically going to turn the car into a rolling CCTV machine. So pretty nice packaging here. Oh, dropped all the bits. So we've got a couple of anti-static sheets here which are going to be useful for sticking it onto the windscreen. Pretty useful. Manuals, don't need those. Here's the dash cam itself. Now this is a bit different to previous dash cams that I've had because this actually sticks directly to the windscreen with this 3M pad. So it's not using a suction cup like the one that I've had before. This is actually going to directly stick onto the screen. So it should be quite neat actually, as long as it stays on there. But yeah, fairly chunky looking thing. Feels pretty nice quality actually, I would have to say. This actually feels more like a sort of mini camcorder almost that you'd hold. You know, it's a really nicely put together thing. We've got an adjustable angle on this main lens here. Definitely going to be useful for getting it pointing the right direction. And yeah, pretty simple. So it looks like we've got our connections here for the other cameras, the interior and rear camera, as well as a microphone and some AV input as well, which is quite interesting, as well as our SD card slot. So yeah, overall, pretty nice looking little unit. So along with the dashcam itself, Viofo also sent me their hardwiring kit, which is really handy because I didn't want to have a USB cable running down to a USB port down here. This is perfect. Now on the L322 there'll be a couple of ways you could install this. There's a fuse box down in the front passenger side here, beneath the behind the glove box. You could tap into that. There'll certainly be a place you can get your ignition live feed from. But thankfully in the L322 we also have an ignition live feed up in the front lighting module up here, and that's going to be where I'm going to be wiring this into. It's a really nice short run and should be pretty easy to tap into, so that's going to be my plan. So if you wanted to use the parking features of the camera, you'd also have to find a permanent live up there as well, which shouldn't be a problem, but I'm not going to be doing that today as I don't really need the parking features of this camera. So I'll show you where I'm going to connect it in a minute. So as when we fitted the LEDs recently, the first step is going to be to prise this lighting unit down. You should make sure you have a nice plastic spudger to do that. And the wire we're going to be using to supply the dash cam is this guy here. It's a red and blue striped wire. This is the one that comes on when you unlock the car, stays on whilst the car's running, and turns off when you lock the car, so that will work perfectly fine. This is also connected to a 10 amp fuse down in the central junction box, so it should be plenty for our needs. So before we go cutting into any wires and splicing in our new power feed, first thing I'm going to do is pull the fuse number 57 from the fuse box down here, which is the supply for that wire. I'll show you guys the wiring diagram now on screen, and that'll make sure it's safe to cut into it without causing any sparks or excitement. So pretty easy. Get all your embarrassing CDs out the way first. There's a panel down here which I'll show you with the GoPro. 2 tabs at the top. Pop that down, and then you've got a torch. You can see all of these fuses are labelled with the correct number, so 57 there. That's the guy we want to pull out. So our goal here is to pass the USB wire up through the aperture where the light came from, pass it forwards and just get it to pop out at the front of the headlining here. So I found there's a little bit of a space just to the left here. There's a small hole you can just about pass the USB through. Like that. Whew. So not too bad. And then we can kind of move this to where we want it. I'm thinking the camera's probably going to sit either here underneath the screen or here on the left hand side. So we'll figure that out later, but that's the main thing done. We've got our USB power routed to where we need it. And obviously this lead that they give you is way too long. In theory you could cut this down if you wanted to. Even the USB bit you can cut down. There's only 2 conductors in there, or there should be, the ones we actually need. But I think for our purposes I'll basically be coiling it up like that and hiding it away. There's loads of space up here to hide it, so I'll keep it long just in case I want to move the camera to another vehicle at some point. But yeah, so that's that bit done. So at the other end of the USB cable we've got this little adapter box which goes from 12 volt to our 5 volt to USB, and then these are the leads that we're actually going to connect into the wiring here. So to start working on this, basically what we're going to do is pull back some of this loom wrap they've got on here, this loom tape. Hopefully I can figure out where the end is and start peeling it off. Slide it back like that, give us some wire to work with. And yeah, as I said, the ones we're interested in, these two here, black and the blue and red. So as I'm not using the parking function of the dash cam, basically what we want to do is connect the permanent, which is the red, and the accessory, which is the yellow, both together. So these guys will be more or less twisted together, and they'll be connected to this guy here, which is our 12 volt power feed. So as I said before, the parking function won't work with this, but that's not something that I want to use anyway, so I just want the dash cam to work when the car is switched on and running. So first thing we're going to do is obviously cut the wires in a position where we can get to them nice and easily. You can get sort of wire tap products that might work quite nicely for this. I haven't tried any of the new ones out. I'm always more of a proper cut, crimp and heat shrink kind of guy than a wire tap guy, but yeah, I say those probably work. So this is the kit I'm going to be using. Basically, it has lots of different sizes of these crimp, heat shrink, all in one didgeridoos. Really, really good. I'll leave a link to the Amazon link in the description below. So make sure our wires fit in there nicely like that. Get your crimpers. Ideally you've got a better set than me, but these should do the job. And give that a real good crimp on that end there. And that should be a pretty good connection. So now that's done, we can poke this guy into the other end. And there we go. That's that connection made. Heat shrink that up. Now I'm just going to do the same again for our ground wire. This type of crimp that I've got here actually really good, because when they soften they almost release kind of like a glue or like a resin. I'm not sure if that is actually what it is, but it seems to melt on and glue onto the cables really, really well, so it strengthens the cables really nicely. And once they harden again, they go rock hard, really nice and strong. So yeah, good connections. So as a quick test, I've just popped the fuse back in, and we're going to give the camera, we're going to plug the camera into our USB here, which should now be powered, and hopefully we'll be able to see that it turns on. There we go. So that's working as intended.
Please insert a memory card.
Oh, okay, I will do. Not just yet. So as another quick test, what we'll do is I will take the key, and then when I lock the car, it should in theory turn this off, because it's, there we go, the car's just locked itself, and it's powered off. So that's working exactly as we want it to. So now all that's left to do is we'll finish up the installation. Pop a cable tie around this, and then hopefully we can tuck that up there, out the way, which we can, plenty of room up there. Even the USB box as well. This actually has a low voltage cutout setting on it as well, so you can choose at what voltage you want it to turn off. That's more for the parking function, but we're going to leave it at 11.8 volts. It shouldn't cause an issue. Pop that up there as well. We're going to get our light unit, plug that in, like that. Make sure that still works, which it does. Perfect. Tuck the rest of that wiring up there into the headlining, and then pop our light back in like that. So there we go. Hopefully you guys can see now I've got a live feed of the camera on my phone. So this is how I guess we'll set up the viewing angle of the camera, pretty much. Stop recording. We can change all our settings in here, including stuff to do with the resolution, loads of other stuff, HDR, G-sensor, everything you could want to set in here is nice and easy to set in the app. So that's good. That's actually a lot easier than using the little inbuilt screens on a lot of cameras, so that's pretty good. So there we go, that's the Viofo A139 Pro fitted to the windscreen of the Range Rover. Or at least that's one part of the A139 Pro fitted to the Range Rover. Because this is actually, as I alluded to in a previous part of the video, a 3-channel dash cam system. So when you order your A139 Pro, you've got a choice of ordering it in just in the single channel form, which is this main 4K camera at the front, a 2-channel system, or a 3-channel system. And in both the latter cases, the 2 and 3 channel systems, you'll be given 1 or 2 of these extra little dash cams. And as you guys can see, this is basically just a mini dash cam in its own right. It feeds into the main unit here and is recorded on the same SD card at the same time as the main camera's recording. Now admittedly, multi-channel dashcam systems are probably something a bit more suited to professional drivers like Uber drivers, or perhaps if you live in Russia, but I thought I'd try this out because it seemed like a really interesting product, and I thought if these cameras are good enough, there might be a chance I can actually use them as part of my YouTube videos in future. If I could use my dashcam footage from inside the vehicle and outside the vehicle just being recorded as we're going along, that would make recording videos for you guys a lot more interesting, a lot easier for me. This one here is actually the interior view camera, so let's get it fitted up and see what it looks like. So for the interior camera, I'm thinking of putting it somewhere up here, just on the top side of the windscreen. Again, this one doesn't really matter if it goes over the black part of the screen, because it's going to be facing backwards, obviously. But I think that should be fairly neat, and it should give a pretty good view of the interior of the truck here. So let's tell you what, let's connect it up, and then I'll check the view on my phone. But overall, that's pretty cool. It even gives us a bit of a view, as you guys can see, out these side windows here. So you know, if there's somebody driving on this side of the car that you know you want to capture on your dash cam, you might just be able to get it with this interior cam. So yeah, very good. Now let's tidy up this wire. So for the front interior camera, they give you this little short coax lead, because obviously the camera is going to be fairly close to the original one. So we'll connect this up, and I'm going to be able to hide it again just at the front of this headlining as well. So we should have the wire emerging from the main Viofo unit here, disappearing into the headliner, and then reappearing over here again to make it nice and neat. Let's get it done. So I think that's looking pretty neat now from the driver's seat. It's not blocking any of our usable windscreen. This is kind of tucked behind the rearview mirror here, and this is up on the shaded part of the windscreen. So yeah, really good. Happy with that. Looks pretty neat. So then next, we've actually got another camera, which is our rear view camera. So this is going to be facing the rear of the vehicle and recording whatever's going on behind us. Pass it over into the boot. I reckon what I'll do is I'll hop into the boot myself. Now I know how most Labradors feel. Close this down. First, before I do that, have I got the key on me so I can actually get myself out again? Excuse all the muck in my boot, so just figure out which way up we are. So that's the right way up. So we need to rotate this. I'm thinking somewhere like that is probably going to be where we want to go. You want to put it somewhere where it's actually wiped by the wiper, obviously, so you don't want to put it anywhere where there's going to be grime encrusted on the screen. So probably somewhere like that, I would say. So now all we've got to do is hide our cable in the headlining, tuck away all the excess, and that should be this job done. Let's get cracking. Now when we get to this corner, we need to open this gap up a little bit to get the cable in, and then along the top of the door frame here. So from here, we just need to go up above the headlining again. So there we go, we got back as far as this corner now with the wire. Obviously you guys can see the camera's up here, the wire's just dangling down at the moment. So in theory, what you could do now, in theory you could lose all of this cable just in this this trim or up in the headlining, and then you could just run the cable directly from the headlining like that. However, what I'd like to do is run the cable a bit further up into the headlining. Hopefully you guys can see that there's a bit of a grommet tube here that connects the main body of the car with the upper tailgate here. So if we run our cable just to underneath where this grommet is, we should be able to run it through the grommet into the upper tailgate, and then it will emerge into this cavity here, and then it will basically come out, poke out at the top of this plastic here, and run straight into the cameras. So that should be a really nice, neat way of doing it. Can feel it with my fingertip. Not quite poked through yet. Here it comes. Okay. So there's our little connector. Survived its trip. Where we're aiming for. There we go. In fact, you can't even see it there. That's a pretty neat, stealthy dash cam install. So sorry about the lighting, guys. It's getting a bit dark here. It does mean we'll go out and test the low light video performance of the camera here in a minute. But there's one more product that Viofo sent me, which I want to show you guys real quick. It's just this little Bluetooth remote control. So basically, what this is basically just one button that will Bluetooth connect to the camera system itself. It's really tiny. As you can see, it's a little black square here with a circular button in the middle, and all this is basically is like an emergency button that you can slam. I'll turn these lights back on. In the event that something happens in front of you on the road and you want to quickly hit this button to tell the camera to save that footage. So in a normal operation, the camera will basically rotate round through its memory card, so it never runs out of space. Once it gets to the full card, it will basically just start overwriting the first files that it wrote. So by slamming this button, it will basically just tell the system to earmark those files to make sure that it holds onto them. So next time a Irish farmer in an old Ford 5000 with a load of turf on the back pulls out in front of me, I'll slam this button and we'll be able to record it, and I'll show it to you guys at some point in the future. So I guess all I've got to do is decide where I want to put this. Obviously, it wants to be somewhere fairly within easy reach of the steering wheel. You don't want to be taking that. The whole idea of it is that you want to be able to hit it without taking your eyes off the road too much. So, because otherwise you can just press a button up here on the camera itself, but that's probably not too convenient when you're trying to drive. So it's going to be somewhere on the dashboard, and again somewhere that's not too obvious or too stands out too much. I actually quite like the idea of in the console here, just to the left of the screen. It's kind of hidden away there. You wouldn't really know it's there unless you knew. Alternatively, it could go up here on top of the corner of the dash on the shiny bit here. Probably not too visible there either, but I think, well, actually there is a really nice little space for it just to the left of the screen here, and I'll show you guys in a minute on another shot, on a cutaway. There's kind of like an area of black plastic just to the left of the screen and to the right of the sat-nav screen, which is almost the perfect size for this. So I think we're going to go for it there. So all we've got to do now is pair the button to the camera. So it says we've got to press and hold the video lock button on the remote control for 3 seconds to pair with the camera. So let's hold that down. And there we go. We've got blue LEDs. Hopefully that means...
Video protected.
There we go. So as soon as I hit that button,
Video protected.
it's going to protect the video that we wanted to save. So that's really, really handy. That's a really nice little accessory actually. So now imagine this, I'm driving down the road, 100k down this nice country lane here. Big, massive turf wagon pulls out in front of me. I have to slam on my anchors.
Video protected.
Sorted. Now I can show the footage to all my mates and send it to you guys on YouTube. Happy days. So darkness has fallen, and I want to show you guys pretty much the top selling point of this camera and why you might want to consider it over different models of camera. So this Viofo camera actually has HDR on its sensor, on its image sensor. So what I'm going to do is we're going to see if it makes a difference, and if it's so, how much of a difference to being able to see number plates in the dark. What we're going to do is take a bit of footage with the HDR turned off, and then we'll turn it on and see if it makes much of a difference. And we'll try with my full beams on as well. As you guys know, my full beams are really, really bright. So it'll be interesting to see if it can actually compensate for that. So HDR is currently turned off. Let's start it recording and we'll check to see what that footage looks like. So as you guys can hopefully see downrange there, that's my partner's little yellow Citroen DS3 there. And hopefully you can see the number plate, or at least you can see the outline of the number plate. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to read the lettering on it. But this is basically simulating what might be happening if a car was coming towards you at night time. So I can't really see the detail closely enough on my phone preview that I've got running from the dash cam right now. But from what I can see, it looks like that image might be washed out. It looks like the number plate is completely white, so no detail being captured there. Let's put on my full beams now. As you guys know, these are pretty bright. And even to the eye, the naked eye now, that is almost impossible to see. I can just about make out the lettering in it, but it's kind of glaringly bright, the reflection there. On the preview on the camera, the whole front of the Citroen is now completely washed out pretty much, so that's pretty, yeah, not much detail being captured there in non-HDR mode. So now, and we'll head into the settings, turn HDR on. And again, I can't really see the detail on the screen, but the image looks a little bit more balanced overall, with a little bit less hot spotting going on that number plate. So you guys will be able to see better than me on the actual file recorded off this. But let's try the full beam as well, see how that looks. So you can see it's actually trying to compensate there a fair bit. This is a pretty harsh test that I'm doing right now, as I'm absolutely bang in front of the Citroen, and I've got my massive full beams on with my huge spotlight on the front there as well. But I would say just at first glance, the image of the front of the Citroen there is a little bit better exposed. Like, there's a little bit more detail there. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to read a number plate still, but we'll be able to check. So as you guys will have seen there, on that test the number plate still wasn't visible with HDR turned on. It was a pretty harsh test though, to be fair, as in general, dusk and nighttime driving, the footage does look really good. And as you can see, I'd have no trouble at all pulling the number plate off of this Audi here. And more generally, the footage looks absolutely great. Even heading into direct sunshine here, the image is well exposed and shows plenty of detail and nice colours, and I think it's definitely good enough for me to use in my future videos when we're out and about in the Rangy. When it's sped up, the footage makes for some pretty decent time-lapse video as well. The quality and the colour is pretty amazing for a dashcam, and it's probably somewhere close to what you'd get from a GoPro from a couple of years ago. Overall, I'm really happy with the A139 Pro. Aside from being there in the event that it's needed for evidentiary purposes, it's also going to act as an additional camera, or 3, for more general use. If you guys are interested in getting one of these setups for yourselves, I'll leave a link in the description below. Please remember to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers for watching, guys.